Jan, what do you remember as being the first indication that something might be wrong?
My cubicle was a window cubicle, and it faced uptown Manhattan, north. And my first indication that something was wrong was somewhere I thought I heard the whine of a jet engine. And it's something I'm very, very familiar with because prior to working with this planning organization, I worked with the airline industry for about 21 years. It sounded very close to me. A few seconds after that, the building shook. I nearly fell out of my chair, and my desk slid away from me, and so too did my computer. Then it righted itself. So then I knew that something was really wrong, and I realized it was not the normal movement of the building, because the building normally would move in high winds. And then when I looked out of my window, I saw tons of paper falling and pieces of the building tumbling to the ground. So that's when I knew something was really wrong.
Obviously, you had other workers around you. What essentially happened there in your office working area?
Everyone got up and started to look at each other, and quickly we realized that something was indeed wrong, and we moved to the entrance door to our offices, and the entrance door there had glass panels. When we looked out of the glass panel into the corridor where the elevators were, we saw we barely saw anything, but we saw flames coming out of somewhere between the cracks in the elevator door. And right away we decided we needed to evacuate the office. And luckily for us, right outside of our door was an exit staircase. And again, lucky for us, one of our co-workers had the state of mind to crawl to that door and kept calling to us. So that's how we found that door. You couldn't see further than beyond the door. All we saw were flames shooting out from the creases, between the elevator doors. I think we all moved instinctively. There was the overpowering stench of smoke. But as I said, the exit was fairly close to our door, so there was not, we didn't have time enough to suffocate, but it was most instinct than anything else.
What happened once you hit the stairwell?
Okay, once we hit the stairwell, we started to go down. Remember, we were 82 floors up, so the going was rather slow. It was made slower, and this is really in a nutshell, by the fact that we had to allow wounded people. There were many wounded people coming from above us. So we had to, the stairwell could really have accommodated two people side by side. They were that narrow. So we just kind of have to brace ourselves against the wall to allow these people to pass. And then as we started to go down on the lower floors, about in the 40s, we had to not only allow people to go down who were wounded, but to allow the firemen and all their equipment to come up. So the going was very, very slow. What slowed me down a little, too, was the fact that one of my co-workers, a lady by the name of Larissa, she was, for want of a better term, freaking out. So I was trying to lead her by the hand out of there. All in all, when we got down to like the 26th floor, then is when panic really started for me, because I saw the walls starting to crack, and I realized this was a bad situation, and probably we were not going to make it out of there. But eventually we did, and actually I kind of lost Larissa at about the 10th floor, and then I had to go back up for her a few floors. But be that as it may, we made it out to the concourse level. And that's where my problem really began. When we got to the concourse level, it was like calf deep in water because of the sprinklers. So Larissa and I and another coworker named Chris, who met up with us, we exited through the revolving doors that we normally would use to enter the building. As we made it a few yards away from those doors, I heard a loud whooshing sound and a booming sound. And I turned to face the doors, which we just came through, and I saw the escalators to Building 1, which normally goes up to the plaza, starting to fold accordion style. And at the same time, the same glass doors we exited started to explode. Shops with lots of glass windows around, like Banana Republic and the Gap and so on, and those started to explode also, the glass. And I could tell that the pieces, the shards of glass were coming towards us. It was almost movie-style stuff. And so I threw Larissa to the ground, and I lay on top of her, and then everything just went black. And it was really at that point in time that I said to Larissa, we're going to die, because right away I realized that the building had collapsed. But in error at that time, I realized now, I thought it was our tower that had collapsed, but in fact it was Tower 2 that had collapsed on top of us. So we were pretty much buried in debris, and I thought that the flooring above us would indeed collapse and we would be fully buried. But that didn't happen. The flooring held. So it was very dark. You couldn't breathe because it was almost trying to breathe something solid. I lost my glasses, and we were kind of buried in debris for a while. We were on our hands and knees, and we kind of heard other people around us. So we were trying to find our way around, knowing also that very close to us, there were some escalators going down to the New Jersey Path train. So we couldn't go there, otherwise we would fall through. As we were sort of crawling around gingerly, we heard a voice somewhere in the distance asking if anyone was there. It was like a voice from heaven, really. And we said yes. And this voice was saying, come to the light. I have a light, come to it. And we were saying to him, we can't, because we can't see it. Could you please keep calling? And using our sense of direction and our understanding of the concourse, we sort of followed where the voice was. Ultimately, we got to the voice, and as it turns out, it was a fireman. That was really very traumatic for the few of us who were there, who were like whilst we were on our hands and knees, we also kind of held hands and formed this sort of chain before we got to the fireman. And we continued as we got to the fireman. We stood up and held hands and sort of made it out of the building, which eventually took us out to Vesey Street.
And what was waiting you out there?
Total devastation. I've never seen the likes of it, but as soon as we stepped out of the door, we pretty much stepped into 4 feet of ash. You know, it was just like you were sunken in ash trying to walk through that and try to get it. But there was like 4 feet of ashes.
And at this point, were there any firemen or policemen there to assist you?
No, we basically continued to struggle as a group on our own. We pretty much lost the other people, But the three of us from our office sort of held each other together and struggled out of there until we got onto the main road, one of the main roads, which was Church Street. One block up, there was an emergency vehicle with, I think it's a lady emergency worker who was standing by trying to give us some water. And then another block onwards, we sort of turned back and looked, and that's when the Tower 1 collapsed.
Can you even guess how long after you got out of the building it came down?
I would say, John, I'd say about 2 or 3 minutes. We barely got out in time. I believe. I can't be sure again, but I think if we were there another 3 minutes longer, I wouldn't be here speaking to you.
Just to put this in a bit of a perspective, and this is obviously a very personal question, would you like to share with our audience your religious faith and beliefs, what you were brought up in, and what you currently are now?
I was born a Muslim, and that was my dilemma in just after 9/11, when I realized, when it became very clear what had happened, because it seems as though I was suffering from two directions, and one was the fact that you're Muslims and
You were being singled out.
yeah, you're being singled out for a special type of treatment based on what happened. And then at the same time, you were also a victim of people who purportedly are Muslims too. So, there was kind of resentment and conflict there.
Any single thoughts that you, under the circumstances of this experience in your life, that you should put out there for people who are listening to this?
Well, the single thought I'd like to share with people is that, pretty much we should bear no malice for what has happened, and or it is just a case where there are people who pretty much don't understand what their religion teaches them, and it's just about them. But the one thing I want to share is that I think that people should live